The Correctional Service of Canada has found no evidence of wrongdoing in Paul Bernardo's controversial transfer to a medium security prison in Quebec. Commissioner Anne Kelly says the review found the decision to transfer him out of a maximum security jail followed all applicable laws and policies. She also said that La Macasa institution in Quebec meets all security requirements to house Paul Bernardo and offers specialized programs for sex offenders. Commissioner Kelly ensured the convicted serial killer can return to a high security prison if necessary. Well, for more on this, let's bring in lawyer Tim Danson. He is the representative for the French and Mahaffy families for the last 30 years. Thank you so much. It's great to chat with you again. I know we spoke weeks ago when this story initially broke. I'm curious, what was your reaction to the comments made yesterday by the CSC, and what do you think is flawed about their decision, if you think there is any?
Well, I wasn't at all surprised by the decision. In fact, I anticipate that they would find that they had complied with all the legal and regulatory and policy procedures. However, I haven't had a chance to read the report thoroughly. I've done it on a preliminary basis, and I have to read it carefully and review it with the families. So I'm not prepared to accept that they have followed all the legal requirements at this point, but it may be that they did. My point is, even if they did, then that means the law needs to be changed. I don't accept this, one size fits all, that you just check a number of boxes and therefore that determines whether or not Paul Bernardo should be transferred. The Supreme Court of Canada has made it clear repeatedly that sentencing is the means by which society communicates its moral values. Here we're talking about a sentence and a dangerous offender designation that was imposed on Paul Bernardo, who is a sadistic sexual psychopath. And even after 28 years, and I'm talking about when the parole board's decision in 2018 and 2021, they still found that Paul Bernardo, after all of that time, still had no remorse, no empathy, no insight into his crime. So I'm not sure why someone like that is being transferred into medium security without any other considerations. What I have discerned from the report is that there is no consideration given to the punishment side of the sentencing. And that, in my view, is inconsistent with the purpose of sentencing as stated by the Supreme Court of Canada. We're having a parole hearing in November. Why are we making this decision now? Mm-hmm. Why didn't they wait until after the parole hearing in November and see if the parole board has reached a different conclusion with respect to Paul Bernardo? I doubt that they will. So this is disturbing.
And what do you make of the criteria that they said that Mr. Bernardo met? There was about 3 different criteria. One of them was talking about the fact that he was able to integrate with other inmates. And, let's keep in mind, this is a guy who is a sadistic psychopath who's very manipulative and deceptive. And I'm just wondering, what's your take on the criteria? What needs to change moving forward?
Well, there's 2 things about that criteria. When they talk about, the last hurdle that he seemed to have got over that opened the door for this transfer was that he was able to integrate with other offenders. We're not talking about the general prison population. He's not in the general population in Millhaven. We wouldn't be having this conversation if he was, because he wouldn't be alive. We're talking about integrating among a small number of people in his range. So that is not acceptable. I think there has to be an entirely different criteria for Canada's most dangerous offenders. And I think there has to be greater emphasis on punishment until such time that there is actually compelling evidence of any form of rehabilitation. But as I said, I don't mean to repeat myself, but this is very, very important. When the parole board consistently finds that this guy has no sense of remorse or empathy or insight into his crime, he needs to stay, and the punishment aspect of this has to remain as found by the trial judge, Justice Lesage.
Tim, we have about 30 seconds left. I just want to get your reaction to, how difficult is it to relay this information to the family of the victims? Every single time something comes up, I can't imagine this is an easy phone call to make.
No, I mean, it's quite frankly, it's bone chilling. And you know, when you're going to call the families that it's going to be a shock and you're going to experience, even over the phone, a high level of despair and anguish, and quite frankly, disbelief why this person is getting all of these considerations, and that the punishment side of the sentence seems to not factor in. I'm not saying it's the only factor, but it's not even factored in at all on the criteria that they're using. So the families want to see some legislative change. The act, talks about the least restrictive means for offenders. That cannot be for people like Paul Bernardo. There has to be a distinction for the general prison population and people like Paul Bernardo who are beyond rehabilitation, as found by the expert evidence and the trial judge.
Lawyer Tim Danson, representative for the French and Mahaffy families. We appreciate your time as always. Thanks for joining us on CB24 Live at noon.
Thanks for having me.